Hello, this is Paula Finn, editor of New Labor Forum at the Murphy Institute, and joining us today is Harold Meyerson, executive editor of the American Prospect. And we're following up on a discussion held here this morning on the 2016 election, a debrief. Harold, you have laid at the feet of Bill Clinton Hillary Clinton's defeat, not for his philandering, but rather something else. Talk a bit about the extent to which you think that Bill Clinton partially devised his wife's defeat.
Well, he certainly didn't do it intentionally, but that was something that I meant in a sort of symbolic sense, that the move away from working class interests of the Democratic Party in the last several decades, particularly during Bill Clinton's presidency, was certainly a factor in Donald Trump's victory. Certainly the passage of NAFTA and permanent trade relations with China just devastated the industrial Midwest, and those were the states that Hillary Clinton should have won and lost instead: Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa. Those were all states where the white working class listened to the two candidates and said, well, Donald Trump has got more credibility on trade than Hillary Clinton does, parentheses, look what her husband did. But there's generally a rightward movement of the Democratic Party that also, in this particular election, there was some backlash to that among young African Americans and young Latinos with the policies of mass incarceration, end of welfare that went down in Bill Clinton's presidency as well. So in a symbolic sense and in a real sense, I think the Democrats were paying for a party that had grown too close to Wall Street, which under Bill Clinton also declined to regulate derivatives, that repealed the Glass-Steagall Act, and so on. The party as a whole has been moving left, including the center of the party, in the last several years, and Hillary Clinton was sort of trotting along to keep up with that, but that wasn't enough.
Right. Now, Bernie Sanders was the troubadour of the 99%. And without kind of engaging in Monday morning quarterbacking, talk a little bit about how you think the election might have functioned differently had the Democratic nominee been Sanders, especially in the Rust Belt where there was this white working class disaffection.
Well, I was one of the few, I think, sort of mainstream journalists who was a Sanders guy from the get-go. That said, I always thought there would be two problems with the Bernie Sanders candidacy. The first, and probably the biggest one, is Michael Bloomberg probably would have then entered the race. And that would have probably split the vote enough so that the election would have been thrown into the House of Representatives, and we would probably be just about as bad off as we are today in that case. Second, the one great vulnerability of Bernie turns out not to be the socialism stuff, I think, but the simple fact that the kind of expansive public programs he was talking about would require tax increases, and it would require tax increases to not just to the 1%. Most people would come out much better as a result, but you can only imagine the attack that would be waged against him, not only by Republicans, but by mainstream centrist media, which would say, oh, he's going to raise your taxes by this thousands of dollars. So it wouldn't have been easy if Bernie had been the nominee, but that said, I think the Bernie ideas, which were injected both into the Democratic Party and into the political discourse generally, provide a real model for where the party has to go in many ways, particularly on economic policy.
In a sense, that really hasn't been the model for the building of an Obama coalition. In a sense, the Obama coalition has depended upon a middle-class, educated, white voters allied with voters of color, Latino and African American. Talk a little bit about, now looking forward, what you think about the wisdom and viability of the Obama coalition is.
Well, I think the Obama coalition has some real strengths, but as this election demonstrated, the Obama coalition without Obama isn't enough. Obama was an exceptional candidate, an exceptional campaigner. And even while Hillary Clinton was going down, his approval ratings were well above 50%. But I think there needs to be more attention to basic bread and butter concerns. If I have problems with the Obama presidency, they begin with the financial policies of the bailouts, in which his Treasury Department under Timothy Geithner did indeed save the banks, but did nothing on home foreclosures, which were in the millions all around the country. That sort of thing. There needed to be more attention to real bread and butter concerns. And while Obama, who was really a brilliant guy, understood, I think, a lot of the economic plight of American workers, there really wasn't in his first 2 years much oomph put behind that. In his last 2 years, when he could only work by executive order, he got the Labor Department to do some pretty great stuff, extending overtime eligibility and things like that. Unfortunately, what the president can do, the next president can undo with a stroke of the pen. So having lost Congress, a lot of this stuff is not going to still be with us, and we're going to have to climb up those hills again.
Thank you, Harold.
Okay.